Hello art beaders, Becky here for artbeads.com, and I've got a brand new video for you today. Today we're going to be making a really fun pair of 4th of July earrings. These are the perfect little festive touch for your 4th of July ensemble. Whether you're going to a barbecue, camping, or just staying home and beading, these are the earrings for you. They're cute little seed bead tubes with seed bead fringe coming out, and you just need to know a few basic techniques to make them. I'll show you how to do the brick stitch, how to zip up a peyote stitch piece to create the tube, and then I'll show you how to add the seed bead fringe and finish it all with a wrapped loop to attach it to your ear wire. So let's dive in and make some really fun 4th of July earrings. And it's fun making jewelry for this holiday because you have that built-in color palette of red, white, and blue. So it's a really good starting point, and they're super primary colors, so you can usually find all kinds of different beads in these colors. So I'm going to show you how to make these cute little seed bead fringe American flag earrings. I really love how these turned out. I think they're so cute, and you just need to know like simple brick stitch, peyote stitch, and seed bead fringe techniques to make them. Super cute. I do have some other inspiration from our design studio as well. We've got all kinds of 4th of July jewelry inspiration. Oops, I'm getting tangled here with my needle and thread. We've got these really fun earrings, Streaming Glory earrings. They've got chain swag with cute little crystal dangles at the end. I love the look of these. These look like fireworks to me. So if you want more of that fireworks style, these are great. We've got free instructions for these in our design studio, as well as a shopping list. And if you want to make some cute little 4th of July crafts, our flatbacks and beads are perfect for something like that. You can use our prestige crystal flatbacks and glue them on to something like this. This is a little votive for candles. So if you're having that 4th of July barbecue and you want to do some decorating, this is a really great idea. Again, you could use that epoxy adhesive to glue them in place. You might have some left over from when you're making your animal jewelry. Definitely use them for something like this. That's a great little 4th of July craft. And you can even make little garlands for something like that too, with beads and charms of your choosing. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can use our red, white, and blue jewelry supplies for your 4th of July crafts. But today I'm going to be showing you how to do this one. So we've got a great demo for you coming up, and this piece will be in the design studio. I want to get it in next week, so this is a nice little preview. If you want to learn how to make it right now, this is the video for you, so make sure to save this one and come back to it if you're wanting to make this piece. I've got the supplies all linked in the video description, and tutorials as well linked for how to do all of this. So I started out with our seed bead graph paper and drew a little American flag design. Now you can see that this way it's a peyote stitch, but you can also stitch it up in brick stitch if you turn it and go row by row like this. And I'll show you how to do that because that's how I approached it. Carolyn, where do I find the design studio? It is on our website, artbeads.com. Just type in artbeads.com into your browser of choice. You'll see our website, and there is a link to the design studio at the top of the page. I've also got links to everything I'm talking about here in the video description, so you can find it super easy. Hope that helps you. A loom, that would be kind of fun. You could do a loom flag. We do have graph paper for loom. So we do have free downloads of our seed bead graph paper. I'll show you what it looks like, the full piece. So this is a brick stitch graph paper. So it comes blank, and then you can draw in whatever design you want. Now you can see this was my first attempt, and this looks nice, but how I wanted the fringe, I had to think about how I wanted that fringe to come out of the bottom of my flag. So that's why I changed the orientation so the stripes could come out of those beads at the bottom. You could certainly do a flag like this too, but your fringe would be coming out of that bottom stripe. So if you wanted to make your fringe stripy like the stripes in the flag, it might not work the way you want this way, but that's another option as well. So we have loom paper as well as brick stitch paper, peyote stitch paper, square stitch paper. I've got a link to that in the video description. It's for you to download, print out, and then you can color it in all on your own with any design you want. But I've got this great flag design for today's demo. And like I said, you can stitch this up using the peyote stitch technique or the brick stitch technique. I went with the brick stitch technique, and I can show you how to start the brick stitch really quick. So I've got my needle all threaded here. So another project that I did this week, I learned how to do my nails myself. These are gel nails, and I learned that you could add press-on nails to your manicure with gel glue that cures with the UV light. I love gel manicures, but I hate the shape of my real nails. They're just not very uniform. They don't ever really get very long. So I didn't know that you could use gel glue to add some press-ons to your manicure. So that's what I did, and then I painted them. But they're way longer than I'm used to. So it has been, it's been really fun to kind of get used to beading with nails. So I made sure to thread my needle beforehand. So like I said earlier, I'm gonna start my flag with the brick stitch, and I'm gonna start from this end of the flag. So you can see on this end, we're starting with blue. To start the brick stitch, you're gonna make that first row in ladder stitch, and I'm going to start with the first 2 beads, which are 2 blue seed beads. I am using 11/0 cylinder beads, Toho Ico seed beads. That's what I have linked in the video description for you to use. You can use any 11/0 cylinder beads in red, white, and blue. You could even use round seed beads. This technique will work. It might change a little bit the look of the finished project, but really any seed beads in red, white, and blue will work. So I've got my 2 blue seed beads added to the thread, and I'm leaving a tail long enough to weave back into the piece later when I'm all done. And then I'm going to come back up through that first seed bead added. And that's what's going to start the brick stitch. And you can see that kind of got my 2 little seed beads lined up right next to each other with both the stringing holes facing up. So you can see it's created a little bit of a thread bridge there at the top. I'm going to come back down through that second seed bead, and then that puts me in a good place to add my next seed bead in the row. So the first few beads in this row are all blue, so I'm going to add another blue one. And I'm going to loop through that last seed bead added. So you're kind of building on this row like a ladder, adding each rung to the ladder. That's why it's called ladder stitch. And then you come back up through that last seed bead added. And we have diagrams, videos, all kinds of different tutorials for how to do the brick stitch. I thought I'd just show you how you start that first row. So I've got another blue seed bead looping back through the last seed bead added. And then coming back down through. Now, this first row might look a little crooked and a little wonky, but that's okay. It will really line up when you add the next row on top of that. So I've got 4 seed beads so far. I've got 7 blue seed beads in this first row. So looping back through that last seed bead added to add the next one. And then coming up through the next seed bead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm on my 6th seed bead. And these nails too are so long it's hard to see. I could make a whole video of just trying crafts with long nails, right? See how successful it is. Yeah, I really like both pairs of earrings. They're both really festive and fun. I think earrings are a great way to add some holiday style to your outfit because they're super easy to put on. You don't have to worry about different necklines because it's your earrings. So I just love making holiday earrings, especially for 4th of July. They look like little fireworks coming out of your ears. Okay, so that's the last blue bead that we need to add. And then we add an alternating pattern of white and red. So this is how you do the ladder stitch for the first row. And like I said, it will look a little crooked and a little wonky, but once you add that next row on top of it, everything starts to line up really nicely. So don't worry if it's a little crooked. And another thing you can do to kind of make these beads line up a little better is you can go back through them with your needle and thread. So you can just weave back through, and that'll also help line everything up. And you can do that as you're adding beads. It will line the beads up a little bit nicer as you go. So you can see that they're starting to line up really nicely just by me doing that. So really easy to get everything situated with this stitch. That's what I like about this stitch. It's easy to maneuver through it and add and modify as you go. So that's what makes it such a great stitch for making basic shapes like this square flag that we're making today. But then you can also make more intricate shapes too. Once you really get the hang of this technique, you can make all kinds of different shapes. And we have lots of great tutorials in our design studio at artbeads.com. We've got like pineapple shapes, little squirrels, we've got a brick stitch goldfish, we've even got some brick stitch kits. We've got a really cute Christmas kit that you can make a little Christmas gnome and his mushroom house and a little deer, all kinds of different kits. So that's the basics for starting the brick stitch. You start with that ladder stitch row, and then you get into the actual brick stitch when you add your subsequent rows. Do you prefer using a bent needle versus straight? So let me tell you something. These needles do not start out bent. They do start out perfectly straight, but I do a lot of bead weaving and they do get a little bent and curved as I work with them. And I think that works just fine. You know, straight needles work great, but they're flexible enough that they will, if you've got a tight grip like me, they will start to kind of bend and curve as you work with them. And it does kind of work with the shape of your beads well. Sometimes if they get a little too bent out of shape, I will take my nylon jaw pliers and just straighten them out again, making sure not to squeeze that eye at the end of my needle. But I can work with straight or curved. I certainly don't start out with curved needles. They just end up that way just from all the stitching and weaving that I do. So great question, Carolyn. You too might end up with a curved needle through just the way it works when you're weaving. All right, so you've got your ladder stitch started, and then once you've got that started, you're gonna build your brick stitch. And that technique is the same for every subsequent row after your first row. So I've got a piece that's almost pretty much stitched up, almost ready to turn into a tube and add our fringe. So I'm gonna show you how to add the subsequent rows. So remember that this is how you will add your second row, your third row, any row after that first row. What's your go-to needle size? I really love size 12 beading needles. I think they are a really versatile size. It fits through these little 11-aught cylinder beads wonderfully, really easy to maneuver with. So size 12 is my go-to beading needle. I love tulip beading needles. Those are a really great brand for beading needles, really durable but sturdy. Really nice brand there. We do have a nice blog post all about choosing beading needles, as well as a video. So if you want further guidance on that, that is available to you. All right, so brick stitch, it's alternating, increasing and decreasing the stitch. So you can see these rows are kind of staggered. So this row ended on a decrease and the row under that ended on an increase. So for this next row that I'm going to be adding, I'm going to start it on an increase. And you're going to start every row with 2 seed beads. I've got an alternating red and white pattern, so I'm going to pick up a red and white bead. And because this row is starting on an increase, I'm going to bring my needle through that first thread bridge at the top of my beads. So the very first little thread bridge at the top of my beads in the last row is what I'm going through here. And then I'm pulling tight, and that's going to put these beads in place. And you can see it's staggered out on an increase because I went through that first thread bridge. Then I'm coming up through that second white seed bead. So you're always starting your row with 2 seed beads, pulling tight, and now I'm ready to add my next bead. So after adding those first 2 beads, you're just going to add 1 bead at a time in the row. So I've added a red seed bead to my needle. I'm going to come through this next visible thread bridge in the row, pulling tight, and then I'm going to go up through that seed bead I just added. And when you come back up through it, make sure that you're not going back through that thread bridge that you came under. Otherwise, you're just undoing your work and it'll fall right off. So I've definitely done that before. It just means you have to do the stitch over again. Adding a white seed bead, coming through that next thread bridge at the top of the previous row, pulling tight, coming back up through the white seed bead. So brick stitch is really easy once you get the hang of it. And I love, for something like this, it's just a straight row. When you're doing peyote stitch, the rows are staggered and you kind of have to pay attention to the color pattern a little more. So for a small piece like this, I would go with brick stitch because you're just doing the row straight across. So it makes it super easy. So you're just repeating that. We've got that alternating red and white pattern all the way across, and we're ending this row on a decrease. So that's pretty easy. Ending the row on a decrease is easy. You just stop once you have added a bead to that last visible thread bridge. We go. You guys are asking really great questions too, so make sure to leave those questions. I love answering them, love hearing your comments, seeing your comments, and love hearing your suggestions for what kind of videos you want to see. That really helps me make videos for you guys. We love knowing what you want to see. That's helpful. We need to know that so we can give you the content that you need to inspire you and help you learn more about jewelry making. That's what it's all about. Learning and honing your skills, right? Is brick stitch stiffer than peyote? I think it is a little bit stiffer because you're adding each bead in a straight pattern. And if you're going through the beads a little bit more, I think, than you are in peyote. So it's a little bit stiffer, still pretty flexible, but sometimes with peyote, it's really fluid and soft. So brick stitch is a little bit stiffer, and that's why it's great for making like little shapes like animals, because if you're making a little brick stitch animal shape or a pineapple or what have you, chances are it's a focal and you're going to want it to be stiffer because it's going to stand out more in your designs. Whereas peyote stitch is usually for something like a tapestry or a bracelet that's going to be a little more fluid and bend around the wrist or something. So you do want that to be a little more fluid, especially if you're making like a peyote stitch bracelet. And because we kind of do want this to be a little stiffer because we're making a little tube for our earring. So that's another reason why I think brick stitch is a good way to approach this project. You could do peyote stitch. I think maybe peyote stitch would go a little bit faster. I think your rows would work up faster, but I like brick stitch because the rows are straight, so they're a little bit easier to follow, and it's pretty quick too. I stitched this up in like the hour before I went live, and I just have a couple more rows to go. So brick stitch works up pretty fast too. All right, so here you can see how you end a row on a decrease. Like I said earlier, it's super easy. All you got to do, you can see I've got one thread bridge left on this row, so I'm just going to pick up that red seed bead that I need. Easier said than done sometimes when working with these tiny little seed beads. And then I'm just going to go through that last thread bridge visible, pull, and there you go. Now, if this row were to end on an increase, what you would do to increase the row, you'd pick up another bead and go through that last thread bridge again, and that would add the extra bead to your row and end it on an increase. We're starting this next row on an increase again, so I'm gonna pick up a red and white bead because we start every row with 2 beads. And I'm going to go through that first thread bridge there. If this were a decreasing row, you would go through the second thread bridge. So it's pretty easy. Once you remember all those little rules for increasing and decreasing the stitch, it's pretty easy to just go along with your pattern, increase and decrease where needed. You can even move the thread around to start a brick stitch row, maybe not on the perfect end of the last row, somewhere in the middle maybe. So that's why it's really easy to create whatever shape you want. And this is the last row we need to add. So after this row, we are going to stitch up our flag into a little tube, and then we can add our fringe. Oh, thank you. I'm not much for holiday jewelry, but I love your flag. Yeah, I thought this was super cute. Just a little subtle something to add to what you're wearing for 4th of July. Like, it's not too in your face. I know a lot of like 4th of July decor and crafts can be super out there just because I think it's just the color palette. Like the red, white, and blue color palette is very eye-catching, very bold. So I get it, but I thought this was just a nice little subtle 4th of July jewelry design that is super cute, and you could totally customize it any way you want. Like you could make the fringe shorter, you could not add any fringe at all, just have that little tube as your 4th of July earrings. Oh yeah, Shelly, I turn my work around so I'm always going in the same direction. Yeah, I know some designers do that. I find that I just, especially if I'm like looking at a pattern like this, I just keep my work in the same position, and I'll just, you know, weave back and forth. And I think I do that to keep like my my pattern lined up with what I'm working with. For a simple pattern like this, you could easily flip your work and not get lost. But for something with a little more shape to it or more colors, I usually tend to just keep my work facing the same way as the pattern and just weave back and forth. I've kind of gotten used to that, but some people do flip their work so they're weaving the same way. It's all your personal preference. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. There are so many ways to approach beading techniques. I have my way of doing it, and everybody has their own way of doing it. It's whatever works for you, and that's the beauty. That's the beauty of it. So many ways to approach it and make it work for you. That's why we love beading. All right, almost done with this row. And then I will show you You will need to know that little peyote technique of zipping up the ends to make a tube. So it'll be like making a peyote stitch ring. How you would finish up a peyote stitch ring, that's how we're going to turn this little flag into a tube. And what's great about this pattern is I made it look like a normal American flag. You could totally, because this is a tube, you could take that blue pattern all the way across, and then your tube would be the same at the top. But if you didn't want to turn it into a tube, you could leave it as a square and add some fringe or make it a pendant, whatever you like. Becky, I'm using 11/aught cylinder seed beads. I've got Toho Aiko's linked in the video description, but you could totally use Miyuki Delica's, Toho Treasures. You could even use 11/aught round seed beads. It would probably change the look a little bit, but the techniques would work the same. So use whatever seed beads you love. 11/aught is a size I'm always working with, especially the cylinders. I love 11/aught cylinder seed beads, but if you prefer 11/aught rounds, totally try it. All right, we've got our flag all stitched up, and now we are going to turn it into a tube. So cute. So you've got your little flag there. So now the ends of this flag are staggered. So that's what makes it easy to zip it up. Because they're staggered and the staggered ends kind of fit into one another. That's how we're going to zip it up. So how I zip the ends up, I'm going to come through that end bead on the other end of the flag. And for these first ones, I'm going to go back up through that bead that I came out of first, just to kind of loop these ends together nicely. And I will do the same on the other end. But these beads in the center, I'm really just going to zip through them to get them all attached. So you can see, like, because of this staggered pattern, the beads line up nicely. So I'm going to go back down through that bead on the other end. And we do have a tutorial for how to do this for peyote stitch rings. It's the same technique for closing a peyote stitch ring. So I'm on this side of the tube. I'm going to come through this next bead in the tube. The next up bead on one side. So you can kind of see I'm starting to zip this up. I'm on this end of the flag. I need another end here. Yes, you could add a white row between the two reds. I did this flag like to look like the real American flag, so there are red stripes on each end of the flag. If you don't want the two red rows touching, you could certainly add another row of white there. But it doesn't really bother me here in this pattern. And how I finish the fringe, I've got the fringe matching the stripe colors. I just counted this, the stripe as just one red stripe. So I didn't add fringe here, but I think that works because I like the amount of fringe that I have on this. And I like that this is like, I don't know, the pattern is like true to the American flag. I was kind of basing it off the real flag. So that's why there's two red stripes on the end. You could certainly add a row of white if that bothers you. But that's something, if you're gonna do this pattern with the brick stitch, draw that extra row in ahead of time because you're doing it this way. So you're not creating those stripes one by one. If you're doing peyote stitch, you can just add it in at the end. All right, so I'm zipping up these rows. So you're kind of just going back and forth between each end of the flag. So I'm coming out of this bottom staggered bead. I'm gonna go through that top staggered bead on the other end. So you're just zipping them up. looks like a corset or something. All right, the next one is on the bottom. Go through the top. So once you get the hang of it, it goes by fairly quickly. And you could also use like a little pencil or sticky note to stick inside your tube so you can follow along like where these beads are zipping up. I'm really familiar with like peyote stitch and how it works, so I kind of can see what I want to do, but if you need a little more visual help, using a pencil or a sticky note might help. And once you get really good at this, you can kind of go through multiple beads. So I'm ready to go through this top staggered bead. If you can maneuver your needle right, you can go through multiple beads at once and make the zipping up go even faster. Whoops. And your thread will get caught on ends of pieces. If you work close to your tray, it'll get caught on your tray. It's all good. It's all part of the process, right? Oh yeah, clear straw would work. I'm using 1G, Toho 1G beading thread, but I think Fireline would be great for this project because it is a little stiffer. So if you want a little more stiffness to your project, that would be good. Chopsticks, that's a good idea. Yeah, anything like fairly thin and cylindrical will help you keep that shape. And that's especially helpful for more tubular stitches like tubular peyote or tubular herringbone. All right, we've got our ends all zipped up, and I am going to go back through these end beads just to make sure I've got the ends stitched up as well, because you can see on the ends here there's little thread bridges on every bead, so you want to make sure those two end beads are connected just like we did at the start. There we go. All right, now we can add our little seed bead fringe, and I'll just show you how to do like one or two, and then I'll show you how I turned the whole thing into an earring. So I've got to weave my thread back to this other end. I want my stars pattern at the top of my earring, so we want to add the seed bead fringe at the bottom of these stripes here. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow the bead path and get our needle positioned down at the other end again. So just go through some of those beads. Make sure you're not skipping over any. Follow the thread path of the stitch so your thread isn't visible or skipping over any beads. I'm not used to having such long nails, and it's funny because like they just click more than regular nails, so I find myself like clicking them a lot more. I hope that doesn't annoy my husband. But it's just fun when you get new nails. And now I know how to do them myself, and I bought a few different nail polish colors. So I think I'm gonna have fun playing with doing different nail polish colors. I figured I should have nice nails, right? Since my nails are on camera all the time. But I didn't want to go to the nail salon all the time, so I'm really happy that I learned how to do it by myself, little DIY. That's the beauty of being like a crafter. It gives you the confidence to try all kinds of different DIYs, whether it's beading or making home decor or doing your own nails. All right, almost to the other end. And it doesn't really matter where you start your seed bead fringe. You're just going in a circle anyway, so you'll get to all of them eventually. All right, so to start your fringe, you want to be coming out of one of those end seed beads at the bottom of your tube. And we're going to match our fringe color to the stripe color we're coming out of. So I'm coming out of a red stripe, so I'm going to add red fringe. And for my earrings, I added about 30 of these seed beads. So let's pick up a bunch of them. And a bead spinner might be great right now. All right, so I've got 4, 5, 8, 11. Got 11 beads on there. And you can make your seed bead fringe as long or as short as you want. If you want to go longer, you totally can. So we've got 11, that's 15. 15, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 29, 30, 31. Now, if you're using seed beads like Delicas or Treasures, there's a little more variance in size. Icos are really consistent, so you might not have to adjust the length as much. But when making seed bead fringe, you might have to adjust the number of seed beads to match a little better, especially between colors, because like the finish might add a little bit of a different size variance. So just kind of line them up as you go and see what they look like. For the end of my fringe, I am adding a 3mm Prestige Crystal round bead. And then I'm going to add 1 blue seed bead, just to keep that red, white, and blue pattern kind of present throughout the whole piece. So to complete your fringe here, you're gonna skip over that blue bead that you added and then come back through all of the other beads. So I'm gonna bring this up here and kind of show you how I do that. So I'm skipping over that blue bead and then going through all of the rest of the beads. So skipping over that blue bead, that kind of makes it like the end bead or the stopper bead of your fringe, and that's what's gonna keep everything in place. So I got to come back through all the rest of these red beads that I added. Now this can be easier when you have it laid out on your mat, but I wanted to get them close enough to show you. Just going back through all of these. And this might be a good time if your needle gets bent out of shape when you're weaving. This might be a good time to straighten your needle back out with those nylon jaw pliers, so you have a nice straight needle to work with to get back through all of those seed beads and make sure you're not getting hung up on anything there. And then once you're through all of those seed beads, you're gonna come up through that seed bead that your fringe is coming out of. There you go. Now, once you've got this thread up back up through the seed bead you're coming out of, you may have to adjust. So I pushed all of my beads down and then pulled again to get the spacing right. And you're going to want to pay attention to thread tension here. You don't want to pull too tight. If you pull too tight, it's going to make your fringe look really stiff and just not nice. So if you've pulled really tight, just kind of, you know, pet it. Don't pet it too much or you'll pull that thread back down. So you just push your beads back up and then pull again. And this is easier to do when it's laying down on your mat. Just kind of pull everything. So once you feel like you've got nice tension, come down through the next seed bead over. This will kind of keep everything in place at this point. Don't pull too tight. So once you're here, then things are kind of a little more locked into place. I would give another gentle pet to your fringe, and that'll get everything looking nice and fluid. And then just kind of hold it up, see how it hangs. Maybe give it another little gentle pet. So you're not really pulling, you're just kind of feeling the beads and getting the tension all nice. So that's how you add your fringe. So you're gonna do that coming out of every stripe. We're on a white stripe, so we're gonna add 31 white seed beads, adjust the amount if the length is off, and then add a crystal in a blue seed bead, skip over the blue seed bead, come back through all of the seed beads and up through that bead we're coming out of, then back down through this one until you get all the way around. Now this one, you can see this is my bigger red stripe. I only added one red fringe here. I didn't add 2 red fringes here. And I think that looked pretty good. It doesn't add any gap around the end of your tube, so that works out nicely. Again, if you want to add a white stripe between those 2 ends, you can, but I think having that little bigger red stripe is fine. All right, so now I can show you how I put it all together to make this earring. So what I did to have the tube keep its shape, I put it on an eye pin and used 6mm majestic blue bicones as the kind of little end caps. And that bicone shape really helps this earring keep its shape, this tube keep its shape, because it kind of serves as a bead cap almost. So you can see that that 6mm size fits in there perfectly, and it helps that tube keep its shape. And with a wrapped loop at the top, that really keeps things nice and tight and secure. So I will show you how to do that. So I've got chain nose pliers here. I'm gripping at the very top of my bead, and I'm gonna fold the end of my wire down. I'm using 3-inch head pins, by the way. That gives you plenty of length to work with because you want enough to make the wrap of your loop nice and tight. So I would recommend longer head pins for this. Then you grab your round nose plier, and then bring your head pin back over the top of the round nose plier. Move your round nose plier so they're out of the way so you can bring that loop all the way around. And we do have tutorials for how to make wrapped loops as well. All right, and now you're in a good spot to get your wrap all nice and coiled around that bicone. So I'm using my chain nose pliers to get the wrap nice. And the wrap, this coil will move your bicone down closer and tighter to the top of your tube and get it really nice in place to keep your tube shape. So that's how the shape of the tube is maintained on this head pin. Oh, it's looking so good. Yeah, wind sock. It does. It looks like those little home decor wind socks. Yes. There we go. So we've got that nice tight wrap, that wrapped loop at the top of our bicone. That keeps it all in place really well. And then we would just trim that excess wire here. And tuck the ends in. Yay. Okay, and then the bottom bicone is a little bit hidden, which is nice. And then it'll really be hidden by your fringe. So once you've got all of that ready, you've got these cute little earrings, so cute. And then to add the ear wire to the top, you just simply open the loop of the ear wire with your chain nose pliers, add it to the loop, and you do want to make sure that the stars are facing to the front and then close the loop of your ear wire. So easy. And then you've got cute little earrings once you've added all your fringe. So, so cute. Yeah, I really like how this design turned out. I think it's super cute, super festive, not too in your face 4th of July, but just enough to be a cute little addition to your 4th of July ensemble. Yeah, it looks like a firecracker. That's what I thought too, but somebody just said it looks like a windsock, and that's true as well. So really fun little 4th of July design for you. This video will be available always, so you can come back and rewatch, rewind, catch all the little tips and tricks you may have missed. I've got links in the video description for all the supplies on how to make these, as well as more tutorials for how to do these different techniques that I showed you. We've got great PDF diagrams for how to do brick stitch, nice little step-by-step tutorial on how to make seed bead fringe. We've even got tutorials for wrapped loops, all of that good stuff, and I've got it all linked in the video description. And I will be putting these earrings in the design studio with text instructions and a shopping list as well. So be on the lookout for that. But for now, you've got this great video with all of the links available to you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that that got you in the festive Independence Day mood, and I hope that you try and make these. Let me know if you have any questions. Please leave a like and a comment. We always love hearing from you. And as always, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that bell so that you're notified every time we post a new video, and you'll get all of that great inspiration right away. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time. Bye.